Hey guys, it's Miss Clark. I am recording the lesson for April 29th, 2020, according to our schedule. And this one is called Sootface. So this is the reading lesson, and we're going to start looking at our reading lesson for Sootface. Now you will have the story. You should have the story included in your packet. It's in passage form, but I'm still going to read it to you anyway on here. I don't have the actual book, but it's a really great story. So let's get started. So it says, I can answer questions about a story referring explicitly to the text as the basis for my answers, and I can determine the patterns and change over time in the story, Sootface. Okay, so our vocabulary. We have Ojibwa, which is basically an Indian tribe or a Native American tribe. So that's what Ojibwa is. Badgered means that you are like bothered or harassed or like bullied. Foolishly means like, stupid or not very smart. Clumsy means that you trip over things a lot. You might fall down a lot. Just yeah. Um, Taunting means like teasing, usually not in a nice way. If you taunt someone, it usually means that you want them to react in a certain way, usually angrily. And then chattering in this story means like talking a lot, whispering type stuff. Okay, so I hope the vocabulary words make sense. So, what are patterns? A pattern is an event or sequence that keeps happening. So remember, when we code texts, we have the Z pattern. Okay, and then what is change over time? So like a change over time is exactly what it sounds like. It is when something changes throughout a time period. So an example would be the change that happened between these two McDonald's pictures. So over here on the left side, this is the McDonald's from like the 1950s or 1960s. As you can see by the old cars, this is what it used to look like. And then now it looks like this. This is what a modern McDonald's looks like. See the difference? So it changed over time. This is a McDonald's from nowadays. Okay. Anybody else want McDonald's after looking at these pictures? I do. Okay. So anyway, I think we understand what change over time means. Oh, and the symbols are the little arrows, kind of like the recycle arrows, but it's going around and around. All right, so anyway, today we will be reading the story Sootface. As you are reading, I want you to be thinking about the gist/main idea of the story. And do you see any patterns or changes over time? So remember the three questions that we ask ourselves when determining the gist. Who did it? What did they do? And why did they do it? So just for background info, this is Sootface. This is the main character, and then these are her two sisters, which we will learn about in just a second. All right, so this is what yours should look like. Even though we're slightly behind schedule, that's okay. We're just going to continue working at our pace. Okay, so it should say 4/24 and 4/27 on the top. All right, so it says Sootface, retold by Robert D. Sansucci. Once, an Ojibwa man whose wife had died raised three daughters alone. They lived in a village beside a lake, deep in a forest of birch. So birch is like a type of trees. The sisters were supposed to share the work of gathering firewood, cooking food, and sewing clothes from skins their father provided. Remember, they're Native Americans. The two older girls, though pretty enough, were lazy and bad-tempered. When their father was away hunting, they gave most of the work to their youngest sister. The flames from the cooking fire singed her hair and burned her skin. Sometimes her sisters beat her and smeared her face with ashes. Then they made fun of her and called her Sootface. Poor Sootface's eyes were always sad and tired, but her sisters only gave her more work. At evening, her eldest sister cried, "Hurry, lazy Sootface, fetch some wood to make a fire, cook the deer meat, for we are hungry." In the morning, her middle sister said, "Hurry, lazy Sootface, clean the ashes from last night's fire, brush the mats, gather berries, and bring fresh water. Our father will soon return from hunting. When the hunter returned, he saw poor Sootface and asked, "What has happened to my youngest child?" The eldest sister said, "That one is so clumsy, she fell over her own feet and rolled through the ashes." And the middle sister said, "We tell her to be careful, not to go too near the fire, but she will not heed us." Heed means to listen. Sootface was too afraid of her sisters to argue. She just kept on working. All the while, she sang a little song to herself. "Oh, I am thinking, oh, I am dreaming, that even ugly as I am, I will some day find a husband." Her sisters took the best skins to make dresses and moccasins for themselves. Sootface had only scraps to sew into a skirt and a worn out pair of her father's moccasins, grown stiff with age. When she walked to the lake to fetch water, the young men would nudge each other and point and laugh. Now there was a mighty warrior who lived with his sister in a wigwam across the lake from the village. A great medicine man had given him the power to make himself invisible. No one from the village had ever seen him, though they saw his white moccasins when his sister hung them beside the door flap. They saw the flap rise and fall when he entered or left his wigwam. The villagers knew he was a great hunter, for they watched his sister skin and dry all of the deer, elk, and other game that her brother brought her. Though no one but his sister could see him, the women of the village were sure that he was very handsome. One day, the invisible warrior told his sister, "Go to the village across the water and say that I will marry the woman who can see me. This means that she has a kind and honest heart. Each day I will carry my magic bow. The woman who tells you what my bow and bowstring are made of will be my bride." His sister brought this message to the village. One by one, the young women came to visit the lone wigwam. Each carefully braided her hair, dressed in her softest deerskin skirt and moccasins, and wore her finest necklaces of shells or beads. The invisible hunter's sister greeted each young woman kindly, but when she asked them to tell her what her brother looked like and what his bow and bowstring were made of, each young woman failed the test and was sent home. This went on for a long time. At last, Sootface's eldest sister said that she was going to visit the invisible hunter. She brushed her hair until it gleamed and had Sootface braid it for her. Then she went on her way, wrapped in her best deerskin robe and wearing her finest beaded moccasins. She met the hunter's sister beside the lake. Soon they saw white moccasins approaching. "Can you see my brother?" asked his sister. "Oh, yes," lied the eldest sister. "Of what is his bow made?" "Birch." "And what is it strung?" "Rawhide." "You did not see my brother," the other woman said. The eldest sister went home in a bad temper. Hold on, I gotta move. I don't know if it'll let me move. Oh, okay. Went home in a bad temper. She yelled at Sootface and gave her more work to do. The middle sister, who thought herself clever, decided to try her luck. She hung strings of pale shells at her throat and had Sootface weave some into her long braids. Off she went, sure she would become the lucky bride. As she walked with the hunter's sister, she saw the white moccasins approaching. Quickly she said, "Here comes your brother now." "Of what is his bow made?" asked the hunter's sister. "Horn," said the middle sister, thinking of the finest bow she could imagine. "And with what is it strung?" "Braided horsehair," said the middle sister, pleased at her own cleverness. But the other woman shook her head. "You have not seen my brother." The middle sister arrived home in a fury. She scolded Sootface and smeared more ashes on her face. The next day, Sootface decided to visit the hunter's lodge as her sisters had done. She begged her eldest sister, "Sister, let me wear your white shell necklace, softest skirt, and moccasins. I want to go and seek a husband." But her sister refused, saying, "You would only make my clothes as sooty as yourself," which means dirty. Then Sootface begged her second sister. Sister, help me wash and braid my hair so I may go and seek a husband. But her sister said, The fire has burned your hair too short to braid, and I do not want my hands dirtied by the ash that clings to you. Sootface was stung by their unkindness, but she was determined to present herself to the warrior and his sister. She went alone into the woods. There she said, Sister Birch Tree, share your soft white skin with me. Then I can wear a new skirt when I go to seek a husband. Sootface took strips of birch bark and sewed them together to make a skirt. She wove herself a necklace of wildflower and soaked her old stiff moccasins in a spring until they grew softer. Next, she washed her face and hair as best she could. Her hair was too short to braid, so she added flowers to it, all the while singing, Soon I am thinking, soon I am dreaming that I will find a husband. I am sure it will be so. But when she passed through the village dressed in the finery the forest provided, her elder sister cried, Oh, you are so ugly and foolish looking. Go inside at once. You will shame us before the hunter and his sister, called Sootface's middle sister. But Sootface walked on as though they were no more than chattering birds in the trees. When her sisters saw that she would not listen to them, they began to laugh at her. To friends and neighbors, the eldest sister said, Come, see little Sootface. Her clothes are birch bark and weeds. Her moccasins are stiff and cracked. Yet she goes to find a husband. Next, the middle sister shouted, Look at little Sootface. Her hair is burned too short for braids. The smell of cook fires clings to her. Still, she hopes to find a husband. Soon all the village was laughing at her. But the young woman continued on her way, never once looking back. After a time, Sootface met the hunter's sister, who was drawing water from the lake. She greeted Sootface kindly, and they began talking. Suddenly, Sootface said, There's a handsome man walking toward us. Do you know him? The hunter's sister said, You can see him? Yes, he is carrying a beautiful bow. Of what is his bow made? A rainbow. And how is it strung? With white fire, like the Milky Way, the path of souls. The hunter's sister embraced Sootface, crying, You are going to be my brother's bride and my own sister. She led Sootface to the wigwam. There she poured water into a big pot and mixed sweet-smelling herbs. Sootface found her hurt and sadness washed away as easily as the ashes from her face. The hunter's sister gave her a dress of soft white buckskin, decorated with beads and quill work. Then she combed Sootface's hair with a magic comb, made it long and thick and shiny as a blackbird's wing. This she plaited into braids. You have made me beautiful, said Sootface when she looked at her reflection in the pot of water. Your beauty was merely hidden beneath the scars and ashes, said the other woman kindly. Then she called her brother into the lodge. What is your name? The young man asked gently. Sootface, the girl said, blushing. He smiled and shook his head. Your eyes shine with such joy that I will call you Dawn Light. Today I will carry a gift of game to your family as a sign of our betrothal. Then his sister said, Come, radiant dawn light, and sit beside my brother. Claim the wife's place by the door flap. From now on, this is your home. At these words, Dawnlight exclaimed, Now I am happy. Now I am certain that I have found my husband, my new sister, and new home. They were married soon after. Everyone was pleased, except Dawnlight's two older sisters, who had to do all the cooking and cleaning themselves now. All right, so now that we finished reading the story, what was the gist of the story? So remember that the gist needs to be 10 words or less. So who was the main character, what did they do, and then why did they do it? Okay, so go ahead and pause the video and write that down on a piece of paper. Okay, on this paper, or next, it says, what were the patterns that you saw in the story? If you saw a pattern, I want you to draw the symbol beside it. Okay, so looking at your text that you have, the one that says Sootface on it, I want you to write patterns. Okay, Then it says, what was this change over time that you saw in the story? Draw this symbol beside the, I forgot to finish it. Beside them, I guess is what it's trying to say. But anyway, write down, I want you to find patterns and change over time on your copy. Okay. All right. Now here are some more questions I want you to write down on a piece of paper. Same one you used for the gist. So number 1, why was the young girl called Sootface? And then number 2, list 2 character traits that describe Sootface. Provide evidence from the text to support your answer. So 2 character traits. Remember, a character trait is not an emotion. It's words that describe a character. Okay, so go ahead and write these down. And then, and by the way, here's a picture from the story of Sootface when she's making her birch bark dress. Isn't that cool? They're very beautiful pictures. Okay, so this is the end of the slideshow. You can always rewind. You can always rewind back to where we may have left off. Okay, so I will see you guys at the Google Meet today, and I hope you have a great day, and I will see you then. Bye.